No, you are. You're really similar to a rock star. The only difference is the hair and
The talent.
and the lack of leather pants.
Right.
Which
I can honestly say I do not own a pair of leather pants.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to be able to say. Hi, everybody. Brexit Podcast. This is Todd Conklin. Thanks for being a part of the podcast. It is so good to have you on board today. And I mean it. I'm not even lying. I mean it. I mean it. Let's see. Today's going to be an exciting day because today we have much to talk about. How's the new year treating you? Good? Is it grand? I've got very little complaints. I had a great vacation, first of the year, and then kind of right back at it and doing lots of work and traveling a lot, too much, probably enough, more than enough, a little more than enough. There we go. I don't know. Don't hold me to these claims I made last year. I'm just terrible at this. But I'm happy, and the world's good, and everybody's healthy. So I guess that's 99.8763% of the battle, as far as we know it. So today's a great day for a podcast, I think, because today is a really good get. I'm so pleased to have on board today Dave Payne, who's the corporate vice president of safety and health at Chevron. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about leadership and safety. And it is a great conversation. We really had a good time. It was really fun to sit down and talk with him. Because usually guys like that are so busy and happening and popping. But Dave's always got time to actually make the world a safer place. There's no question about that. And I appreciate that in him tremendously. So let's see. What do I have to tell you? Well, I do have to tell you that in May, is it May? Let me look really quickly. I'm pretty fancy. I carry a small computer with me in my pocket. Here, let me see if I can open this up and figure out what's going on. In May, I think it's going to be May. Yes, it is May. It is May. In May, on the 7th and 8th of May, God, that took me a long time, Nippon Arnold and I are having a workshop in Las Vegas on accident investigation theory, and then we're going to do a whole workshop on the Costa Concordia because Nippon's an expert on the Costa Concordia. So mark that down in your calendars. That's one to think of. And I know Vegas is controversial, but it's a pretty good place to do it. And that one, Brent and I are just now working out the details on that to get it all set up. So if you can go to that, it would be great to have you. And I promise you, it's a really good day. The workshop on Costa Concordia is amazing. And then we'll just kind of pepper it with a nice and sweet little workshop around accident investigation theory for new safety, which is a really great, fun way to spend a day. You'll have a good time. So that's coming up. Then I think Bob's having a hop workshop in Chattanooga that same week. So, we'll be busy. And I'll tell you more about details on that one as they come through, but that one's coming out as well. And then what else do we got going on? There's probably other stuff. I just can't think what it is. I'll think of it and get it to you in due time for sure. But I hope to get to see most of you this year. That would be great. I mean, that would be a really good way to spend time. And we'd have a lot of fun. I'm sure of that. So that's all that matters, right? There we go. I can't seem to get it together to really kick off the New Year's right. So I'm going to work on that. That's going to be my goal really from now on, is to sort of head towards the right direction. But it's going to be a great year. There's no question about that. And I have nothing but exciting news about upcoming podcasts. So the podcast is just rocking along. It's kind of fun now because now there's a whole bunch of them, which is interesting. If you watched Saturday Night Live a couple weeks ago, the opening where they went to hell and talked to the devil, and the devil had a podcast, and somebody said, "Oh, you have a podcast?" And the devil said, "I invented them." That is funny. That is really funny, actually, and part of the way, because I read that there are 700,000 2,000 podcasts that start a week. That is a lot of podcasts. I think that's what I said. I don't know, I can't remember. The details like that are really hard to get to. Let me quit yammering on and get to the discussion with Dave Payne. I think that's probably worth more. And if I have more stuff to tell you, I can tell you at the end. But I want you to take a few minutes and just listen to this podcast and kind of enjoy what Dave's got to say. He's going to talk about sort of how he got into the business, his career, and then he's going to talk about leadership. Pay extra special attention to the leadership. Special thanks to Dave Payne and to the Chevron guys. I really appreciate allowing this to happen. It's really good. I think I mostly appreciate it because I think you're really going to like the podcast. And that, my friends, that is worthwhile. So without any further ado, here is the friend of the pod, Dave Payne, to talk to you and me. We're all going to be there about safety. Here we go.
Okay, so I'm Dave Payne. I'm the Vice President of Health, Environment, and Safety for Chevron. I have been in the oil and gas industry for 38 years. I spent most of my time in drilling and completions. I started in California, worked around the world. I have seen virtually every kind of thing a person can do themselves and cause an accident. And my mission in life is to prevent people from walking off of our locations injured or not walking off at all. So,
why safety? Why move from drilling and completion to safety?
So back in the early 90s, I actually was on a platform in the Santa Barbara Channel when a 23-year-old roughneck walked underneath a piece of equipment that we were picking up when the sling broke and landed on him. He was about, 20 feet from me when it happened. I watched it happen, and I gave the guy CPR for pretty close to an hour from sometime after the incident happened, but all the way into the hospital, and he didn't recover. And I remember the doctor coming out after, we turned him over to the doctors when the ambulance dropped him, and we're sitting out there in my coveralls and work boots, and doctor comes out and he says, he said, he's gone. He said, but there's nothing you could do. And I thought to myself, well, there might not have been anything we could do that time, but damn it, we ought to be able to do something going forward. And so I spent my whole career trying to find ways to keep people from getting hurt and killed. And, it was time for me to move on from the job I was in drilling and completions, and the opportunity to make a difference in the HES space. I had to embrace it.
And it's been a really good fit. You happy? I mean, it seems like a good place for you.
Yeah, I'm really happy. It's, I spent a lot of time offshore or offshore, onshore. I spent a lot of time on rigs with people who are really passionate about the work that they do. And I saw a lot of times, the guys who were getting hurt didn't really have a voice. And so the opportunity to really bring that to bear in my new role and create a voice for the workers, put an end to punishment for safety violations and kind of some of the old school ways that we used to deal with safety. It's a big opportunity. And I think we're doing it on an industrial scale at Chevron.
Oh, no question about it. How do you define safety? What do you think of when you think of safety?
Well, I mean, it sounds like a saying, but it kind of is. But safety is not the absence of incidents; it's the presence of safeguards. And so, safety is an outcome. It's one of the things that I'm really trying to get people to focus on. Safety is not an activity. Safety is what we get when we do things the right way. And I've tried to get away from talking about safety and talk about perfect execution. And when we do work the right way, we get not only do we get safe outcomes, but we also get better business outcomes.
Yeah,
and so safety and business outcomes, they really go hand in hand. That's people talk about it all the time, but I'm not sure they always really believe it.
Yeah.
But we can show it virtually everywhere we
What do
operate.
you mean when you say the right way? I find that curious because the world's constantly changing and risk is super dynamic. You know that. I mean, you come from that world. What does the right way mean? What does that mean?
When I say the right way, there's a million right ways to do just about any task, right? And so when you do it the right way, you're basically doing what you said you were going to do. And it starts with actually saying what you're going to do, because oftentimes we start work and we really don't know what we're about. You show up, you got a task, and you're going to go do something, but nobody really talks about how actually you're going to do the work. So if you can articulate, hey, this is how we're going to do the work. These are the outcomes that we're looking for. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. We go execute that the way we said we would. To me, that's the right way.
Tell me about Chevron's journey. I mean, you've been a part of it a long time.
Yeah, so Chevron has been on the safety journey as long as anybody, right? The company's been around well over 100 years, and there's actually documents that you can pull out of our archives from back in the 20s and 30s that talk about safety, and it's kind of interesting. Some of the terms are the same, and, you have to kind of interpret, don't do stupid stuff is kind of in there, and it's kind of, that still applies today.
Right. Yeah,
but, 15 or 20 years ago, we were kind of a laggard from our peers as far as safety performance, and the CEO at the time, Dave O'Reilly, I guess, had just had about enough of the large number of fatalities, and he really put his foot down and said, I don't want to be the head of a company that has this kind of safety record. He gathered up a group of folks that created the first OEMS. They created the tenets of operation. They really built the base that we've been building on for the last 15 years. But what I find most encouraging and I'm most proud of in this whole thing is that through the journey, we never said we had the answer. We made a lot of progress. We made progress incrementally every year, and we were always looking for what that next step was going to be. We had enough humility to know that we didn't know everything, and that the first answer we came up with wasn't going to be the answer to everything. So it's been an interesting journey, and I think the move into human performance and this recognition that it's not the workers' fault. It's not about fixing workers. We all spend an enormous amount of time trying to fix workers. Getting away from that I think has been the next big step, and I think it's what's going to get us to the challenge we gave ourselves, which we talk about zero is attainable, was an aspirational goal back in the day when we were having really 20 to 30 fatalities a year, 500-600 days away from work cases a year. And when we said zero is attainable, we really were talking about all accidents, and we kind of focused that into fatalities and life-changing events is really where we want to get to at zero. We know that all accidents aren't going to go away, but I think we're going to get there. I think we're going to get there in the next 2 to 3 years.
How do you think you'll get there? I mean, because I'm super interested in the efforts you guys have around fatalities, the serious events, fatality prevention. That's real. I mean, you guys lead the world in most cases in the way you manage safety and the way safety happens in Chevron.
So I think there's a couple of components of it. It's not a simple thing. I think number one I will say is that the line owns outcomes in Chevron. This is not an HES role. It is the line owns safety. They own safety outcomes. We actually audit leadership. When we go into a business unit and audit, we don't just audit, are you doing your process safety the way you're supposed to be doing it? Are you doing your managing safe work stuff the way you're supposed to be doing it? We audit safety leadership and leadership expectations, and I think that is a good place to start, and I think it's what it's allowed us to get where we are. The other things that we're doing is really getting focused on safeguards, trying to understand how we build resilient systems with a recognition that people make mistakes, and we know people are going to make mistakes. And so rather than hold them accountable and try and fix the person, we want to fix the system in a way that it will allow them to be human.
What is it that got you guys fixated on safeguard management so early? Because you really were early to the ball on that. I mean,
I wish I had. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah,
if I knew what really caused us to get fixated on that, I think I would. I think I would be able to sell that around the rest of the industry. Yeah. But I will say this: I suspect it probably had to do with a specific incident or two, which probably for the lawyers would not appreciate if I mentioned them in detail. But we've had some catastrophic incidents where people lost their lives, and I think there was a recognition during at least one of them that hey, we've had this before, we've tried to fix people before, and it really isn't working. So maybe we ought to look at this from a different perspective and try to build a system that's going to allow people to make mistakes. But I think the other thing that we've really started to do well is look outside our industry and look at other industries and look at how other people are doing things. There's some people doing some amazing things, and they've been doing it for a really long time. We after Macondo, I personally took a team down to Kings Bay, Georgia, to visit a submarine base to understand how the nuclear Navy runs their business, and was fascinated by some of the things I saw on the level of discipline that they have. It far exceeds anything that anybody does in oil and gas. And we took away some of those learnings. We applied those and really focused on resilient systems and being able to convince people or create I shouldn't say convince people, but create a situation where people can be successful. Interesting story from Kings Bay, and I wish I could remember the admiral's name, but the admiral of the base down there actually came and spent some time with us.
Wow, that's impressive.
Well, he gave us half a day. It really was impressive. What was more impressive is that he had actually gone and done his homework on Chevron, and he'd been to our website and seen some of our stuff. And at the time on our website, there was a tagline that said, "Every task the right way, every time." And he really kind of tore us up on that. He was really not happy with that, and he explained to us that wasn't possible, and that people made mistakes, and things were not going to always go the way you wanted them to. And so if you assume that you're going to get every task the right way every time, you're going to fail. And it really got us kind of step back and thinking.
Wow, really? I had no idea.
Oh,
so he pushed back on that.
Oh, he did. And he wasn't just like, it wasn't just like you and me talking right now going, hey, you probably shouldn't do this. He was really, really emotional about it, and it really got our attention.
Wow, that's remarkable. What's it like to manage safety for an organization this large? I mean, that's got to be remarkable. Do you think of it that way? Maybe you don't think of it that way.
No, I was just going to say I don't think about it as managing safety at all. I think it's coaching and leading and helping to get people to think a different way. It's prodding. It's a lot of different things, but it's not managing. I really do think it's about enrolling the people that do the work, the people that really have skin in the game, the ones that are closest to where the incidents happen, whether they be a refinery manager who's going to be held accountable for what happens in his facility, or it's the guy who's most likely to get hurt because he's the guy who donned up in all the gear to do a confined space entry. Engaging those folks to really be thinking about what's important, to be focusing on the safeguards that they're going to protect them, and making sure we're all thinking about how we execute the work in a way that really delivers the outcomes we're looking for every time. And some of those outcomes just happen to be not hurting people and not getting people killed.
So talk about that, because I think that's really interesting. One of the things Chevron does, which I think is remarkably clever, is you call your work planning and execution program Managing Safe Work.
Right.
How important is that planning, preparation, that the management systems around safe work?
So it's so important that I used to have a piece of paper taped to the wall outside my office when I was in my last job that said safety first, right? You've all seen those signs everywhere, safety first, safety first. And so I had the safety crossed out in a red pen, and I wrote planning over it. And I really wanted to get people to think about, it's not safety first, it's planning first. You do the planning well, and safety is the outcome. And so when we plan well, we deliver safe outcomes. And I think one of the things that I'm seeing now in industry is a lot of proliferation of things that close the gaps in the planning process without actually admitting that maybe there's a flaw in the planning process. There's lots of little tools and gadgets that we created. Chevron has the Start Work Checks, which has been a really useful tool and really powerful, but it's put in place to address gaps in the planning process. Right. And so I think that we really need to step back and really look hard at our planning process. We have job safety analysis that we do on all of our jobs. We have to do a JSA. And the JSAs, in my opinion, in a lot of cases have become a safety activity.
Right.
And safety is not an activity. Safety is an outcome.
Right.
But when you create safety activities, and you sit in a pre-tower meeting and you listen to guys talk about stuff, and they'll go, okay, guys, what hazards are we going to face today? And they just start rattling off the usual suspects, pinch points, overhead loads, crushing, that kind of stuff. You say, okay, are they really talking about the work? Are they really planning their work for the day? Or are they just going through an exercise because it's become a routine, it's their ritual before they start work? And it's probably not going to have a big impact on what they do today.
So the one question I'd ask you is that plans have a really difficult time planning for unexpected events. So planning's vital. It's everything. And we know when we plan high-risk work, we're better at it. I mean, we just know we are. How do you guys think about variability and unexpected occurrences and dynamic risks, those things that don't fit neatly into the plan equation but are super important to what you guys do?
Yeah, so I think there's an opportunity to talk to people before they start work about recognizing change. We always talk about stop work, but we don't really talk about stop work in a really systematic way before we start jobs. So any job you do is going to change. We all know that. I don't care how simple it is. It could be as simple as pulling 2 screws out of the wall, or doing a big dynamic lift on an offshore platform. Something's going to change in that activity, and I think there's an opportunity to have a conversation up front about when are you going to execute stop at work. What could be the things that would cause you to stop and redirect and rethink? And I think one thing I think we do a really, really good job in things that are obviously high risk. I actually don't lose a lot of sleep over really big high risk.
I understand that. Yeah.
We talked about this earlier today, where if we have something that's really big and gnarly, we're probably not going to start it on Friday. We'll probably wait till Tuesday. We'll probably we'll do it the right way. Where I get nervous is when we talk about low risk work. And most of our fatalities, not just us, but across the industry, most of our fatalities are happening in what people would call low risk or routine work.
Right.
I don't even like calling it low risk work anymore, because I think it sends a message that we don't have to worry about it. If there's a human being involved, there's a potential for a fatality. Human beings are spectacularly good at finding new and interesting ways to get themselves killed.
Yes.
And so, I mean, there's an opportunity for us to actually get people to step back, talk about exactly what they're going to do for the day, what's the work I'm going to execute, and then answer those questions, which are, what could get me killed today? And walk through that. And I get some pushback on that and go, we don't want to be scaring people, but at the end of the day, if you're not a little bit nervous when you go out to work, you're probably putting yourself at risk.
Well, I actually think that question, when this system fails, because we don't have perfect people, don't have perfect processes, don't have perfect conditions, when it fails, what'll kill you is really an important question. Not because it breeds fear, but because it introduces the opportunity to talk about safeguards. Because the logical answer is, when it happens, what do we count on for recovery? And that notion of resilience and recovery, that's really going to be an important part of how I think oil and gas is going to change.
I'd agree with that, and I think the more the worker actually understands what the potential risks are, which safeguards are in place, which safeguards are important, the more confidence they can have that they're going to be able to execute that work safely. And it's a different confidence level than just having the overconfidence of ignorance.
Right. And
so I really believe that giving more information, actually having deeper conversations about, what are the really bad failures that could happen, give the worker, the person who's most at risk, the opportunity to really participate.
So what do you know now that you wish you would have known 20 years ago? What hints do you have for the thousands of safety people just like us that listen to this podcast? Because there's a whole bunch of people that'll listen. It's weird. I don't know why, but they do.
It might have to do with that it's interesting and entertaining, and it actually helps people get safer. But the one thing I wish I would have known is this move away from punitive action. I really wish that I would have known 20 years ago that being punitive is not going to move the needle. I actually tried to implement a set of golden rules when I was a drilling manager in Thailand. I was convinced that, hey, if we had these golden rules out here and we will fire people for their own protection, I was all bought in. The good news is the union wasn't having any of it, and so we never did implement them. But I was way off base. I wish I'd have understood the value of bringing in the actual workers to do the work, getting them engaged in conversations about how things get done. The expertise in how to drive safe work doesn't sit behind a desk. It sits out where the work gets done.
What was it you think that caused you to think differently about that?
I think there was a whole series of things. First off, we weren't having as much success as we wanted with the things that we were deploying, and I actually got some feedback while I was in Thailand. I spent a lot of time on the rigs while I was there. I go out and ask guys, hey, how are things going? And one thing about people on drilling rigs, they're not shy about telling you what they think.
They'll call a duck a duck. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if it's an ugly duck, they'll tell you it's an ugly duck. And they gave me a pretty good earful about, hey, you're trying to change too much too fast. You're not listening to us. These things aren't helping us. We're just ticking boxes to make you happy. And I really stepped back and realized I might be missing the boat here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's that humility. I don't know what to call it other than I think humility. The belief that, wow, that group of people who do the work really are in a position where they probably know more than I know.
Right.
That's actually Well, it's noteworthy. I mean, it doesn't sound hard when you talk about it, but doing it, I think, is kind of difficult. I mean,
I think you have to have humility to be successful in this kind of work.
yeah, I think leadership itself demands humility and generosity. I think those are the two things that I think when I think of Chevron, I think of how generous you guys are. I mean, you're generous with your safety information. You're truly, absolutely committed to making the industry safer, right? I mean, there's just no question about that, and then I think that shows through.
Well, safety is not proprietary.
Yeah,
we firmly believe that should not be. We should be willing to share any best practices. It's not a differentiator between companies. I'm really proud of where Chevron is today. I'm proud of our leading position, but I really wish that everybody in every industry, not just in oil and gas, could get exactly where we are, and we could all go together to the place we're all trying to get to.
Yeah.
Because any fatality, any life-changing event, whether it happens on our job or on somebody else's job, it breaks my heart.
God, what a beautiful thought. That's wonderful. How important is leadership?
Well, leadership's absolutely critical.
How do you think about leadership? Because you're remarkably famous within your company as a leader, because you're good at leading. I mean, people like that.
So,
and I don't even want anything from you. I'm not even trying to butter you up.
Well, I mean, I think it starts with how I define leadership. Leadership is creating the opportunity for other people to be successful. It's not about telling people where to go. It's not about saying, hey, we're going to take this hill and you guys all get behind me and let's go. Some people view leadership in that context, and that's fine. But for me, it's about creating opportunities for other people to be successful. And you got to understand the definition of what success looks like and all that. And it's always good to have a good aligned understanding of what that is, so you're all kind of going in the same direction. But if you create opportunities for other people and then let them go do their thing, man, it makes you look good. So why the hell not do it, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But it really makes them feel rewarded, and they'll do just about anything to help you be successful, and then they're going to be successful too. One of the things that I preach to people just starting out in industry is, don't be personally ambitious. Be ambitious for your team. If you make your team successful, the rest of it comes easy.
Any last hints? Any final words? Anything you want to share with the world?
Well, so what I'll share is my biggest failure in my whole career, and it's still something I work on today, is I'm the worst listener on the planet. And if you don't believe me, just ask my wife; she'll tell you. And I really struggle with that. And the better I've got at listening, the more successful I've been, and the more we can listen to the people that are closest to the work, the more opportunities we can give them to tell us what's really going on. The more we can build trust with those folks, the more likely it is that we're going to get the outcomes we're looking for.
So that was Dave Payne. What'd you think? Yeah, he's someone you want to meet for sure. And he's completely approachable, so that's not a problem. If you get a chance, go up and talk to him. Tell him you heard it on the podcast and you wanted to give him some feedback or something. What do you think about the conversation, though? I mean, he covered a lot of ground, a lot of territory. He's a real thinker, and I'm impressed by the level of commitment he has to actually creating an environment where highly complex work can happen in high-risk situations with great stability and reliability. And he talks about it. And there's things in there that I think are interesting and would warrant lots longer conversation. But to me, the thing that stuck, the one that I've thought about is his leadership value that says his job is to make other people successful. I wish other leaders would listen to that, because it seems so obvious on the surface, and it is so incredibly effective, but not many leaders do it. And I don't really know why. They should. I mean, there's really no reason not to. But Dave, I think, really helped us understand that. Special thanks again for being a part of the podcast. That was really a nice way to spend a day. And it was fun for you guys. I mean, I don't want to put ideas in your head, but that had to be kind of fun. I mean, a little bit at least, right? So that's the podcast for today. Learn something new every single day. Bet you did today. Have as much fun as you possibly can. And for goodness sakes, you guys, be safe.